Still in the holiday spirit, welcome to the Christmas Day edition near Dlala Mzansi. Now, it's been a long season of story production for the show, producing stories that contribute to the development of the different sporting codes in different communities. We continue with our Dlala Mzansi festive specials, getting to know the producers behind the stories. Kumbula now, you can also join in the conversation via our social media platforms using the hashtag Dlala Mzansi. You can reach us at Soweto TV channel. Igama lami Vuyo Macoba, and this is my story in the Dlala Mzansi footprint. Well, love for sports started back in KZN, Esikhaweni. That's a small township just outside of Richards Bay. There were a lot of sports that we were playing as a kid. I remember I used to play cricket because there was Baker's mini cricket at that time. And I mean, later on in the years, there was also Schweppes came in and sponsored the basketball in the township as well. And I remember falling in love with basketball as well. But in the midst of everything, in the black community, soccer obviously was the biggest sports there was around. So in the midst of all of this happening, I found my footprint in the midst of everything that was happening around in terms of sports. But I remember the biggest thing is with my uncle having gone on to work, he couldn't watch the games during the day. So later on in the day, I had to come back and tell him what happened during the day, meaning that I had to report back to him. So I think that my love for broadcast, especially in sports, started then because I had to go back later on at the end of the day and report for my uncle to tell him what happened during the day. I think a lot has happened in the game. This is a jungle, as everybody calls it in journalism, especially in sports. Everybody has stamped their foot. And as a youngster as well, I wanted to stamp my foot as well. I remember starting out, it was really hard because I started in radio as a volunteer. But the guys like Charles Baloyi, who has been my mentor throughout all this time, even today, he was the one that I remember it was a Sundowns press conference. And I used to just come and report and then go back to radio. So come and do the interviews and go out. But he came to me and asked me and said, like, who are you and where are you from? And then from that moment, he just said to me that, listen, this is how the game is, and if you treat the game this way, and if you put yourself and stamp your foot in this game, this is how you're going to succeed. So from then, I've always taken his lessons, even today. So I'd like to thank Charles Baloyi for being my mentor all this time. But otherwise, the game is the hard game in itself. Sports broadcasting is a hard challenge. But I've had to learn. I've had to learn what the industry is about. And today we sit here with Dlala Mzansi, which is a nominated show in the Gauteng Sports Awards because of all the lessons that were given by the previous journalists that I know in the industry, or the senior journalists that I know in the industry, starting with Charles Baloyi as well. I think my biggest highlight had to be at the PSL Awards, reporting at the PSL Awards, at the red carpet. I think every time I go and report, I always have to remember that where I want to go with this broadcasting thing, especially in sports. And I remember specifically that night, I remember I was looking at from the other channel, Lindokuhle, who was one of my colleagues as well in the industry, who was broadcasting on the day and reporting to her channel as well. And I just saw the way that she reported. And I knew from that moment that as I was reporting on the other side of the red carpet, I had to pull the same game. I had to push the same standard as her. The 2016-2017 Premier Soccer League curtain has officially been closed, and it couldn't have shut in a better way than with the PSL Awards ceremony celebrating South Africa's outstanding footballers. And after that night, I remember telling myself that, you know what, from this moment, this is what I want to do in broadcast as well, and this is what I wanted to push. And even in terms of the channels that I wanted to go to be in, and the standard of broadcast and reporting that I wanted to do was from that night. It was the 2017 PSL Awards, because it challenged me that night to remember all the information, because you have to know even from the nominees what their facts are. So whoever then becomes the winner, you have to quickly think before they walk back to you for that interview to give them his stats for the year. So I think it was challenging enough for me to decide that this is the industry that I really wanted to be in, and it kind of made me think where I wanted to chase it for the future. This one has to come from Manchester United striker Zlatan Ibrahimovic. Everybody knows him with his YouTube interviews. I mean, I remember the day a reporter asked him as well to list the players that he thought were the best players in the world. And he mentioned 2 players. So when he mentioned the 3 players, he didn't mention himself as a top footballer in the world. So the reporter asked him, so Zlatan, why didn't you mention yourself as there? And he said to the reporter, well, lions don't compare themselves to humans.
Who's the best striker in the Premier League right now?
For me, I like a striker that makes the difference. Lukaku is strong,
He's more the physical player that scores a lot of goals. Aguero is good.
You didn't say yourself. I was expecting you to say me.
Lions, they don't compare themselves with humans.
I think for me, that line was beyond anything else, just the attitude that he has for the game, to say, you know what, I'm bigger than anybody on the field when I get on the field. However you decide to take it, but I know myself, my standards. So it's the same thing with Dlala Mzansi as well. I've continuously had to tell my colleagues to say, production colleagues to say, you know what, whether we win the award and we don't win the award, but we know our standard in the game and we know what we want to push in the game. So if we are going to rate, we need to rate ourselves. I've always done voluntary work. Even now, it's the work that I've done in broadcast has always been community work. I've always been reporting stories, whether it's from my radio days, whether it's from my print days. It's always going in the communities and doing those development stories. I think I just want to continue with that. There's a lot that we've done this year, whether it's from pool, whether it's from the old grannies that we're playing football, just to grow the community as well. I think in that state, I want to continue as well, but I just want to take it to the world. Everybody must know what's really happening in the community as well, because we've got world champs in the communities, but these communities don't know these guys that they are world champs. And I think with the effects that it has when I go in and report these development stories, I mean, it brings attention, whether it's government attention, whether it's sponsorship attention. And for me, that's what validates me as a reporter. Once I know at the end of the day that I've achieved for that sporting code, for that community. That's the Vuyo Macoba story in a nutshell. After the break, we continue the special into the conversation that shape-shifted my view of the game.